The introduction of napalm fundamentally altered this tactical equation by attacking the basic assumptions underlying Japanese defensive doctrine. The first documented combat use occurred during the Marshall Islands campaign of January 1944, when Navy TBF Avenger aircraft from USS Essex dropped experimental M47 incendiary bombs containing 100 gallons of napalm mixture on Japanese positions at Roy Namur. The attack represented a tactical experiment rather than established doctrine, with limited expectations for effectiveness. The results exceeded all projections and transformed American understanding of incendiary warfare capabilities. Unlike conventional high-explosive bombs that created momentary destruction, followed by immediate recovery possibilities, napalm created sustained fires that penetrated deep into defensive positions. The burning gel flowed like liquid into cave entrances, tunnel systems and bunker apertures, carrying flame into spaces that conventional weapons could not reach. Temperature measurements conducted after the attack revealed sustained heat levels exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius throughout the target area. These temperatures proved lethal to personnel, while causing structural damage that conventional explosives could not achieve. Concrete spalled and cracked under thermal stress, while metal equipment became unusable due to heat warping. Most critically, the fires consumed oxygen within enclosed spaces, making positions uninhabitable, even when not directly hit by burning napalm. The tactical implications became apparent during follow-up ground operations. Japanese positions that had required individual assault by combat engineers were found abandoned or with dead defenders overcome by heat and smoke. Weapons remained intact, but positions were tactically neutralized, allowing American forces to advance with minimal casualties. This represented a fundamental shift in Pacific warfare dynamics that would influence all subsequent operations. The M69 incendiary bomb, introduced in March 1944, became the primary delivery system for napalm attacks against Japanese strongholds. Each bomb contained 6.2 pounds of napalm mixture in a hexagonal magnesium casing designed to fragment upon impact, spreading burning gel over a wide area. The bombs were typically dropped in clusters of 38, creating fires that covered approximately 1 acre, and burned for 15 to 20 minutes at temperatures reaching 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. The Saipom campaign of June to July 1944 demonstrated napalm's devastating effectiveness against prepared Japanese positions. The 27th Infantry Division's assault on Death Valley, a heavily fortified ravine defended by elements of the Japanese 43rd Division, had stalled after 5 days of conventional attacks. Artillery and naval gunfire had failed to reduce the complex network of caves and bunkers that dominated the valley floor. On June 27, 1944, Navy F-6F Hellcat fighters conducted the first massed napalm strike against Japanese positions in Death Valley. 12 aircraft, each carrying 2 150-gallon napalm tanks, attacked in sequence, creating a rolling wall of fire that swept through the entire defensive position. The attack lasted less than 10 minutes, but transformed the tactical situation completely. Post-battle surveys revealed that 90% of Japanese positions had been abandoned or destroyed, with many cave entrances sealed by collapsed rock heated beyond the structural failure point. The psychological impact of napalm proved as significant as its physical effects. Japanese defensive doctrine relied on the certainty that soldiers could survive bombardment in prepared positions and continue fighting once the attack ended. Napalm attacks created conditions that made survival impossible regardless of fortification strength. The weapon's ability to consume oxygen within enclosed spaces meant that even positions not directly hit often became uninhabitable, as fires drew air from connected tunnels and chambers. Japanese military engineers attempted various countermeasures as napalm attacks became routine during 1944. Positions were modified with improved ventilation systems, water storage for firefighting, and fire-resistant materials where available. However, the fundamental problem remained unsolvable within existing defensive concepts. Napalm attacks created fires that burned longer than defenders could remain in sealed positions, and the temperatures generated exceeded the tolerance limits of both personnel and equipment. The production and logistics of napalm represented a remarkable achievement in wartime manufacturing. Standard Oil of New Jersey established production facilities that manufactured over 100,000 tons of napalm mixture between 1943 and 1945. The basic formula required 38 gallons of gasoline mixed with 6 pounds of thickening agent to create 100 gallons of napalm gel. Quality control was critical, as improper mixing ratios affected both burning characteristics and delivery system reliability. Delivery methods evolved rapidly as tactical experience accumulated. Early attacks used converted drop tanks, modified with ignition systems, but these proved unreliable and dangerous to delivery aircraft. The standardized M47A2 incendiary bomb, introduced in September 1944, provided consistent performance with a reliable fusing system that ensured detonation at optimal altitude for maximum coverage. The Luzon campaign of January to August 1945 showcased napalm's tactical versatility against Japanese defensive positions. General Yamashita Tomoyuki's 14th Area Army had constructed elaborate defensive lines throughout the island's mountainous terrain, with primary positions in the Shobu Group area, designed to conduct prolonged resistance. These positions, built into volcanic rock and reinforced with concrete, represented the most sophisticated Japanese fortifications encountered in the Pacific War. The Battle for Manila, from February 3 to March 3, 1945, demonstrated napalm's effectiveness in urban combat. Japanese naval forces under Rear Admiral Sanji Iwabuchi had converted the city into a fortress, with positions in concrete buildings, underground tunnels, and reinforced structures throughout the downtown area. Conventional artillery proved ineffective against these urban strongholds, with high explosive shells causing extensive collateral damage while failing to neutralize Japanese positions. Marine 4U Corsairs, an Army P-38 Lightning aircraft, conducted precision napalm strikes against individual buildings occupied by Japanese forces. The attacks required exceptional accuracy to avoid civilian casualties while ensuring complete destruction of military targets. Pilots developed techniques for low-altitude delivery that maximized napalm effectiveness while minimizing exposure to Japanese anti-aircraft fire. The results proved tactically decisive. Buildings that had withstood days of artillery bombardment were completely gutted by single napalm strikes. The weapon's ability to penetrate into interior spaces through windows and damaged walls created fires that consumed everything combustible within target structures. Japanese positions that had required costly infantry assaults were neutralized by individual aircraft attacks, lasting less than 30 seconds. Technical analysis of napalm effectiveness revealed significant advantages over conventional weapons against fortified positions. High explosive shells created momentary overpressure that could damage structures, but rarely achieved complete destruction of well-built fortifications. Napalm created sustained high temperatures that caused structural materials to fail through thermal expansion and chemical degradation. Concrete spalled and cracked when subjected to prolonged heating, while steel reinforcement lost structural strength above 500 degrees Celsius. The weapon's tactical impact extended beyond immediate destruction of target positions. Napalm attacks created psychological effects that influenced Japanese defensive behavior throughout the war's final year. Defenders could no longer rely on prepared positions to provide protection during American attacks. This uncertainty forced changes in Japanese tactics, with increasing emphasis on mobile defense and immediate counterattack, rather than passive resistance from fixed positions. American tactical doctrine evolved to incorporate napalm strikes as standard procedure against Japanese strongholds. Field manuals published in early 1945 specified napalm attack procedures for various target types, with detailed guidance on aircraft approach routes, delivery altitudes, and coordination with ground forces. The integration of napalm attacks into combined arms operations represented a significant advancement in tactical sophistication. The Okinawa campaign of April to June 1945 represented the culmination of napalm tactical development. Japanese defensive positions on the island included the most elaborate fortifications constructed during the Pacific War, with multiple defensive lines featuring thousands of interconnected positions carved into limestone ridges and coral formations. The Shuri Line, anchored on Shuri Castle, presented defensive depth and complexity that exceeded anything previously encountered. Navy and Marine Corps aircraft conducted over 650 napalm strikes during the Okinawa campaign, consuming more than 1,000 tons of napalm mixture against Japanese positions. The attacks followed established procedures developed during previous campaigns, with strikes concentrated against identified strongpoints that were impeding ground advance. Results varied depending on target characteristics and delivery accuracy, but overall effectiveness remained consistently high. The final major napalm operation occurred during the assault on Sugarloaf Hill, a 300-foot elevation that dominated southern Okinawa. Japanese positions on the hill had been constructed over months of preparation, with interconnected tunnels, multiple firing positions, and supply dumps located throughout the limestone formation. Previous American attacks had failed with heavy casualties, as conventional weapons could not neutralize the complex defensive network. On May 14, 1945, Marine 4U Corsairs conducted a coordinated napalm attack against the entire hill position. The strike involved 24 aircraft, carrying a total of 48 napalm tanks, creating fires that covered the entire hilltop and penetrated deep into tunnel systems. The attack succeeded where conventional weapons had failed, neutralizing Japanese resistance and allowing ground forces to secure the position with minimal casualties. Post-war analysis revealed that napalm had fundamentally altered tactical calculations in Pacific warfare. Japanese defensive doctrine, perfected through years of combat experience, proved inadequate against weapons that could create sustained fires within fortified positions. The weapon's effectiveness forced tactical adaptations that ultimately weakened Japanese defensive capabilities, while providing American forces with decisive tactical advantages. The strategic implications extended beyond immediate battlefield effects. Napalm attacks reduced American casualties by eliminating the need for costly frontal assaults against prepared positions. This capability proved particularly significant during the war's final year, when Japanese defensive tactics had evolved to maximize American losses through prolonged resistance from fortified positions. Intelligence assessments conducted after the war revealed that Japanese military leadership never developed effective countermeasures against napalm attacks. Captured documents and prisoner interrogations indicated that while Japanese forces recognized napalm as a significant threat, existing defensive doctrine provided no framework for countering weapons that could consume entire defensive positions regardless of fortification strength. The absence of effective Japanese countermeasures reflected fundamental limitations in industrial capacity and strategic resources. Developing fire-resistant materials and constructing positions capable of surviving napalm attacks would have required resources that Japan could not spare during 1944 and 1945. The Imperial Army's response focused instead on tactical adaptations that proved largely ineffective against sustained American napalm operations. American production capacity ensured unlimited napalm availability throughout the war's final phase. Manufacturing facilities operated at full capacity, producing napalm mixture faster than combat operations could consume it. This industrial advantage allowed American commanders to employ napalm attacks routinely, without concerns about ammunition conservation that affected other weapon systems. The tactical revolution represented by napalm extended beyond the Pacific War's immediate context. The weapon demonstrated that technological innovation could overcome seemingly insurmountable defensive advantages, transforming tactical relationships that had remained stable for decades. Japanese forces, despite years of preparation and engineering expertise, found their defensive doctrine completely negated by a weapon that had not existed when their fortifications were designed. The legacy of napalm in Pacific warfare established principles that influenced military doctrine for decades. The weapon's success against fortified positions demonstrated the decisive advantage of sustained effect munitions over momentary impact weapons. This lesson shaped subsequent developments in both incendiary and conventional munitions, with emphasis on creating weapons that could maintain destructive effects over extended periods. By war's end, napalm had proven its tactical value beyond question. Japanese strongholds that might have required weeks of costly assault were neutralized by individual airstrikes lasting minutes. The weapon's introduction represented one of the most significant tactical innovations of the Pacific War, fundamentally altering the relationship between offensive and defensive capabilities in modern warfare. For Japanese forces who had spent years perfecting defensive tactics based on conventional weapons, America's napalm strikes represented a technological shock for which no adequate response existed.